Okay, you're on.
Okay, so the last video ended, we were talking about bungs and how to extract bungs and refastening and so forth. So I brought out some bung pickers. This one is too big. I use this for when I'm looking for gross rot. And I actually had a boat one time that I punched through to the ferrule, and I just pulled the boat out of the water. I punched through the ferrule, and then I hit it again, and actually the ferrule went through. It was so yeah, that was a scary boat. So at any rate, this is a bung that we pulled out in an earlier film, and I'm gonna. Oh, that's a little bit loose. This is a spinner. So this would be one for extraction, and spinners are really tough to extract. You're going to need to get yourself a small, this is one of these little small hook sets. You can find them in the hardware stores in the $5 and $10 bin, and there'll be a set of them. If you get one of these that's got the hook on it, and get that hook back behind that screw, and start twisting it while you're pulling with the hook, and it'll come out. All right, the other area that we were looking at.
Okay, now because that's a spinner, will there be others? Is that an indicator that we've got others?
About 20% of them. Some estimates 20% of the fasteners busted in the factory when they were installed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I don't think I've ever seen 20%, but probably 10. So yeah, you may have other spinners. Some people like to use little screwdrivers to pick the bungs. It doesn't really matter whether you use this or the screwdrivers to pick the bungs, or whether you use another method would be, so I just punched it in, and it basically split. So now I'm going to punch in next to that and split another little area. Now I can pry, as long as I don't pry against the side of the hole. And you can see I collapsed that bung on the inside. And now I can get that piece out real easy, and I can get that piece out real easy. And the bung's out. So now, of course, we have a screw head.
Here, let me get up here a little closer.
All right, and oh, that's tight. I'm not even really getting a quarter turn.
Okay, good.
So I don't think you're going to have to. I mean, we ought to do 12 of these, but
on each side.
Think you're going to have to refasten.
Okay.
And you might refasten certain areas, like right here. The plank is a little bit proud. This plank is a little bit proud of that plank, a little bit high. So I'm going to get into this. I'll use this other method of bung picking. It's really the same. It's just which tool do you want to use? And look at that. I grabbed out the whole bung at once. All right. So let's see if I can bring this plank in the same level as the one above it.
Now that is grabbing okay?
Yeah, it's grabbing okay. And it didn't really move the plank. I got about a quarter turn out of it. And it didn't really move that plank.
Okay, so should I pop the bungs left and right of that and try some more?
Yeah, and if you get the bungs left and right of that, and you still aren't moving the plank, then and you're not bringing the plank in, then the plank's as far in as it's going to go, and
sand off
you'll sand that off when you're sanding with your long line sander.
Okay, now that brings up
now
another...
Now that one came in just a little bit, just a skosh, but
Okay, that brings up another question.
Yeah.
These bungs that I don't pop out, are they going to stay in?
Yeah, they should stay in. Get the guys that are obviously starting to move.
Okay.
Those are the additional bungs that you want to move, and they will likely have a loose screw behind them.
Okay.
So these other bingo.
Is that?
Oh.
It's not spinning.
Okay. Spinner. It's I'm not sure. I think I broke it, but I didn't have very much pressure on it. So.
Okay.
But anyway, so that was a loose one, and that popped. This one was a loose one, and that bung was the one that we popped out with our fingernail. That one was popping out. We got rid of that. Okay. So when you make your bungs, you've got a plank off the bottom of the boat that had been poked. Make your bungs out of the good sections of that plank.
Oh, okay.
And your grain will automatically match the original stuff that's on your boat.
Idea.
If you make a new plank, save the scraps from a new plank so that the bungs for that plank will match that plank. Because the grain structure, all that stuff's going to affect how it takes stain.
Okay.
And so you would keep those. The other area that we were kind of concerned about, we had a little bit of this plank was just a little bit prouder than the one above it right here. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Pop the bung out. You know, and there's about 2,500 of these. So, you know, I'm showing you what you need to do at a minimum. There's nothing wrong with going ahead and popping all the bungs. Now that brought that in. That brought that in smooth. So you wouldn't want to have sanded, and then because you would have had, this would have moved. This plank was not tight against the batten behind it, and it would have moved.
It probably would not be a bad idea to pop them all out then.
It's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea.
And 2,500 bungs. Are we talking about a huge number of hours?
We're talking about 3 days.
3
days. You know, and you know, if you're paying somebody to do it, you know, it's 3 days.
3 days to pop the bungs, make new ones.
Pop them, refasten, and make new ones. Take you about 3 days.
On a boat this size.
3 long days on a boat this size. Yeah.
Okay, so 24 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, if you're paying for it, it's $2,400, or you know, roughly that. So at $75 an hour, it's a little less than that, but still it's a lot of money.
But it's also okay.
If you're doing it yourself, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, what if I don't? What if I don't pull the bungs?
You get 12 coats of varnish on there, which is like, you know, you got about 8 to 12 hours of sanding between each coat. You got 9 coats minimum, so you got 100 hours of finish work, and these bungs will start. You know, everything will be moving. Your bungs will pop out through if you paid for the finish work, a $12,500 varnish job.
Okay. So probably not a bad idea to pull them out.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, at a minimum, this is what you need to do, and this is what you're watching for. And whether you're doing all the holes or not, what you're watching for is the same thing. You're watching for spinners. You're watching to bring these guys all fair before you start sanding.
Okay. Now, this boat, I don't know how this boat was stored, but say it was stored in such a way that one side was getting a lot more sunshine than the other side. Would that make one side more likely to be bad?
Yeah, the wood probably would have deteriorated more. Your plank seams would have been wider. And oh, by the way, after you stain and after you seal, if you have a wide plank seam, we like to put bedding compound, mahogany bedding compound in there. It's full